Good afternoon, everyone. We are very happy to have you with us today. I'm Camille, part of the Business Alliance team, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's session. Organization Development Unlocked, Turning Insight into Enterprise Wide Impact. Before we begin, may I request everyone to kindly turn on your cameras for a quick group photo. This session is part of our series of 20 complimentary webinars in celebration of AI's 20th year. So we hope to see you in the upcoming sessions as well. Please also note that this session is being recorded and may be shared on our social media channels YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Ray will be posting the links in the chat, so feel free to follow us there. And once again, welcome to today's session. In today's rapidly changing business environment, organizations need more than quick fixes to stay competitive. They need a structured, system wide approach to transformation. In this session, we'll explore how organization development serves as disciplined, evidence based practice, helping organizations align people, processes, and culture to drive sustainable change. We'll also look at how organization development evolved from one time initiative into a continuous adaptive journey for long term effectiveness. To guide us through this conversation, we are joined by Ms. Karen Burillo. Ms. Karen is a consultant, facilitator, professional coach, and college instructor at San Beda since 2022. With over 25 years of experience in organization development and people transformation. She has worked with leading organizations such as Coca Cola Bottlers Philippines, Jollibee Worldwide Services, Union Bank, and AXA Life Philippines, bringing deep expertise in learning and development, culture building, talent management, and performance management. She holds a master's degree in industrial relations from the University of the Philippines, a certificate in organization development from Ateneo de Manila University, and is currently pursuing her coaching credentials with the International Coaching Federation. Without further ado, please join me in warmly welcoming Ms. Karen Burillo.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I will now be sharing. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. So today I'm going to talk about organization development. And I actually started out in human resources, and OD was not in my purview until, as mentioned, I was in Coca-Cola. They had us go through the certificate for OD. At that time, and this was around the early 2000s, OD was just a buzzword in in the HR field. No? In fact, OD, when you go to management, you have to explain what OD is all about. So it's in the Philippines. It's been here around maybe 40. But you will see later on in the world practice, it's been around for quite some time, even as early as the 60s, although it's called a different thing. But today we're going to talk about organization development, and we're going to see how it's going to help us transform our organization and create a lasting impact. But before we begin, I'd like us to have a poll just to see where people are in their understanding of OD. So with the help of assessment analytics, I'll be asking two questions. So first is maybe we'll have up to 15 seconds. No? When you hear organization development, what immediately comes to mind? When you either have heard it, no, what immediately comes to your mind when you hear OD? So when I mention OD, it's short for organization development because it's quite long. So maybe we'll wait until some people are still asking. I mean, answering. So maybe up to 45 because around 42% have answered. 60 now. Okay, a few more. Okay, maybe we'll end here. Wait, a few more. Three-fourths have already joined or answered. And we will now end the poll to see. So it seems that many have answered company culture as they related to OD. Change management comes in at a close 32. There are some, and I'm very glad for the honesty. There are some people who have answered they are not sure, but several have answered training initiatives and HR initiatives are part of the things they think about when OD is mentioned. Let's see later, no? Let's see later. We're not gonna answer this now, but it's good to hear that some of the top things there are on culture and change management. Let's now go to poll number 2. Okay. Yan. And the question is, which of these do you think improves organizational performance the most? So is it training, culture change, leadership development, process improvement, or technology? So just a poll of where we are in terms of, because we're talking about the impact of OD. So which of these words here presented improves organizational performance the most? Okay. Culture is leading at the moment, but let's see. Development. Okay, maybe a few more. Let's have it until three-fourths have participated. Okay, so maybe we'll end here. Let's end the poll here because 75 have already participated. And it's quite interesting to see the results, right? That culture change is the highest at 38. Quite a long ways from the second one, which is leadership development, then process improvement training. And I'm quite surprised. Nobody answered technology, no. But we'll also see later on. There's actually no right or wrong answer, but just to see here, di ba may sinasabi sila, I'm glad to see culture change as the top na because of course, I don't know if you've heard this saying, culture eats strategy for lunch, right? So culture, I'm glad to see that people here, our participants, have a good grasp that culture does improve organizational performance. But let's go back to these questions later and then see if our answers are quite near to our understanding of OD or how our understanding of OD will contribute to this, to our answers to these questions. I will now close the poll and we'll proceed to our agenda objective. So first, we will define and explain organizational development and why it is important. We will talk about change models. And some of you are right. Actually, change is part of what OD practitioners look into. So we'll talk about some change modules. Just two. There are many, many that we can think about, but we'll just talk of two that I use most of the time. Then describe the OD process and gain insights from actual OD applications from my experience in the field. No, so I've been around for quite some time because I started working at 10 years old. No joke lang. So our agenda is we'll talk about the definition of OD, why it is important, some change models, the OD process, and some examples. Now, you may ask, bakit may OD process dyan? Well, first of all, if you look at the definition, OD is defined as a purposive and planned effort that is managed from top and filtered through the employees with the primary purpose of increasing organization effectiveness through the use of appropriate and carefully studied forms of strategic interventions. I'd like to point out that OD is purposive. You don't go into an organization-wide change or initiative, or we call it interventions, na you don't plan it. It should be planned. It should come from various sources of information. And one of the most important things when you're an OD practitioner is to get the sponsorship of top management. Because if it's not sponsored at the HR level or at the department level, without the backing of top management, it will not fly. So top management sponsorship is very important. And the goal is OD is organizational effectiveness. So it is purposive, spearheaded, or sponsored by top management, and your goal is organizational effectiveness through the use of various interventions. I use the term interventions because in OD, that's what we call the programs, the solutions that, so in others, it could be solutions or recommendations, but we use interventions because we will not talk about the change framework of Lewin, but he is considered sort of like the father of OD. And in his model, which we will not talk about, he talks about intervening, making an intervention, and that's where the term intervention comes from. In OD, we normally use it as the parang solutions and recommendations that we or programs that we provide. But in OD, we call it, just for terminologies, we call it more as interventions. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box so that we'll address it later on. Now, more about OD in other sources such as it just reiterates that it's planned, systematic to improving organizational effectiveness. It uses behavioral science as its basis and management theory to guide change and growth. And its focus is on people, processes, structures, and culture. Okay. Some other definitions from French and Bell. It is a long-range effort to improve organizations' problem solving and renewal processes. And mind you, an OD initiative can be as short as 1 year to 3 years, but typically it's 3 years. That's why so I'm also in learning and development. Learning development, the ROI is very fast as a facilitator, right? After the training program, you have already an evaluation. You know if you did well. In OD, it takes some time, normally 3 years before you see culture initiatives happening or change initiative making an impact. So it's kind of a slow burn. But for me, OD provides that broader impact because, of course, it is, as mentioned here, it is system-wide application of behavioral science to reinforce strategy, structure, and processes. Kaya nga, one of the things that is also mentioned in OD, although we will not go into that, it's systems thinking. No, systems thinking is an important thing that you use when you practice OD because you don't look at just at one aspect of an organization. You look at it as a system. Okay, systemically. So there are different types of OD emphasis. What we're so used to probably, what happened to my video? What you're so used to is organizational effectiveness initiatives in OD, but there are also productivity effectiveness and strategy effectiveness emphasis of OD. And I will go through them quickly. As I mentioned, organizational effectiveness interventions are the ones you're actually more aware of. So training actually is an OD initiative or an OD intervention because of course training answers the competency gaps of any organization. But there are also career planning, employee empowerment, team efforts, or team buildings is part of it, engagement and processes, intergroup interactions, and even the managerial grid or the 9-box grid in succession planning, if you've heard of it. Those are actually part of some OD techniques or initiatives that you can implement to improve OD organizational effectiveness. The other is, and you might be surprised, actually the TQM that you hear about, the Kaizen, those are also OD initiative. And mind you, they are not typically facilitated by HR. So the other principle in OD is indeed, it's not just HR who does OD. Actually, those who do TQM, 5S, Six Sigma, organization-wide, and it improves productivity is also doing OD, as you can see here. So I remember just a quick story. When I was in Coca-Cola and we were putting up the OD practice, the number one thing that our HR head then did is that, or the management then did, is they split HR. So HR, there was this HR management side, and then we have the OD department. We had our division. We were a division there. We had our own OD division, and this was in the early 2001 or 2002. Alam niyo na how old I am. But we had our own division, and some of the people that were part of that OD department were from the TQM. So they collapsed the TQM function into OD because they saw that OD goes beyond the HR function. So they included that, and those people that were doing total quality that time were part of the OD division. Okay. Now, strategy effectiveness, these are the ones that impact the strategy as it says. So even the re-engineering of the organization, implementation of PMS, either by using balanced scorecard or other PMS techniques, organization culture change, transformational dynamism, and learning organizations are actually part of the strategy effectiveness because you're impacting the strategy. So just to show you through this different types of um, emphasis, OD is not just an HR function. Yes, it resides today in HR, but because it involves the whole organization, um, initiatives that impact or cover the whole organization are actually part of the OD initiatives. So that's a myth that OD is just for HR because other functions that do organizational uh, initiatives are actually also doing organization development work. When I was studying OD in yun nga, when I was getting my certificate, we were initially asked, what for you is OD? I think that was our integrative paper. In on your own words, what is OD then? Of course, we had that textbook definition a while ago, but when I define, I got a one there in that paper. I said, OD is like a doctor, and you diagnose what's happening to the organization so that you can implement uh, the right, in my own words, the right medicine, but in this case, the right intervention so that the organization can be well, something like that. So I got a one there. So yun yung concept niya. So you are like a doctor implementing, making the organization well according to your definition of what well is. So why does OD matter? So I put here HR professionals are strategic change agents, but any professional actually practicing OD, in that case TQM, or even those who are right now, some of the buzzwords are transformation in the organization, right? So even those doing organizational transformation, they're actually practicing OD. One of the important things also is that OD is evidence-based. So you don't just say, I'll do OD out of your head. You have to start first with, later on we'll talk about the diagnosis. What do we need? Parang the doctor, di ba? The doctor needs to find out what's happening to your blood, other tests, no? The analysis of your various tests. Ganun din that's the way also with OD. You look at various evidences to see what kind of transformation do you need to drive? What kind of interventions do you need to drive? And it helps align people's strategies with organizational goals. Because, of course, what you want to happen is the organization is well enough so that it can achieve its objectives. Now, OD and shared HR, the shared humanistic values. So when you're an OD practitioner, you have to respect people, gain trust, openness, and participation. OD enhances employee engagement and organizational health, and it complements HR's mission to support people and culture. So there's still today, OD is still residing in HR. Not necessarily, but still in HR because there's really shared humanistic values. Some organizations, they have it separately, like what we had a long time ago in the early 2000s. We had our own separate OD divisions, but eventually we also went back to the HR division. So ganun talaga, you go back and forth. But in other organizations, OD is a function under the HR. function, right? And a joke amongst us HR amongst us who are in OD, we say, yung hindi ma-lodge, the functions that cannot be lodged in comp and ben, in training, in talent acquisition, it goes to OD. because they don't know where to lodge it. So we really have a lot of work in OD when I used to be in OD. Now, practical applications of OD and HR, you can lead change management initiatives, enhance teamwork, leadership and communication. That's why sometimes even if we have an L&D team, those people in OD do teamwork if it's separate. In other organizations, OD is included in L&D. In fact, I've also held hats where I am the OD and learning and development manager. So it's mixed sometimes. Then it shapes organizational culture and structure. In fact, right now, I'm a retainer in a company and I'm in charge of um, molding the culture of the organization to where they want it to be. So I'm actually also doing work there, OD work there, and design, learning, and talent development programs. So as you can see, it's really closely linked to learning and development. Now, a brief history. Why is it closely linked to L&D? As early as 1940s, and that's ilang years ago, almost 80 years ago, Kurt Lewin developed the action research and the unfreeze change refreeze model. We'll not go into that. And he just basically said if a company is having issues, they should unfreeze and then implement the change and then refreeze to embed or institutionalize the changes they made. So as early as 1940s. However, it was more connected to people development. In fact, if you will look at the timeline in the 1950s, NTL stands for National Training Laboratory in the I think this is in the US. And T groups stands for training groups and sensitivity training. So they develop various initiatives through these T groups, and then it still has training. That's why it closely links siya sa L&D. Training involved in it. That's why it's closely linked to training. At that time, wala pa silang OD na term eh. So it's still lodged in training and development. Then they introduced socio-technical systems wherein they included HR principles and behaviors in studying the dynamics in the organization. And in the 1980s, that's when they started using the term OD, also closely linked to TQM and organizational learning. Dito na lumabas yung learning organizations. So in the world, it's 80s, no? That's around almost 50 years ago. In the Philippines, I started hearing OD as early as 2000. In fact, yun nga, that's why we went to CORD because they were one of the organizations, a few organizations who actually taught OD. We had to be taught OD because it wasn't taught in college then. And then right now, we talk about agility, digital transformation, which is why I'm also surprised we did not answer anything about technology, because actually technology initiatives, which are already org-wide, are also considered technical transformations, OD initiatives. Okay? Now, given all of this, the emphasis of OD is really on change. The primary so those who answered change earlier, you are correct in saying that when it comes to your mind, what comes to your mind immediately is change, because that's the primary focus of OD, change. And in fact, the only thing in life that remains the same is change. Change is here to stay. And therefore, marami talagang trabaho si OD. Kaya when change happens, immediately, the OD people in the organizations are the ones who are tapped. Now, so therefore, that leads us to be able to use change frameworks or change models to help us implement the change. And I will share two today. So one of the things you do in OD is when you implement an intervention, you use change models. So you know what to do, what to start. No? So I'll share two. And if you haven't read the book, John Kotter, he introduced the 8-step change model. But what I appreciate about him is he shared it in parang it's a mythical book. It's a myth, and the story. Has anyone here, quick lang reaction? Has anyone here read this book already? I just like to check of the 88 people who are here. Just maybe you can just Oh, do a thumbs up pala kasi if you raise your hand, it's like you're reciting or you want to recite. But let's do a thumbs up. Anyone? No one? Or sobrang luma na tong book na to, you don't know it anymore. Talaga? No one has read this book? Oh, anyway, so no judgments. It's okay. You can read this book, and it's quite easy to read because it's like a story of penguins actually. And their iceberg was melting. And when their iceberg was melting, they had to go through a integral change because their house will be or their home will melt. So where will this go? So this book illustrates the step for leading change. And he did it in a story of penguins. And if you don't want to read, there are videos actually that will tell you a summary of the book, still telling the story of the penguins. But basically, this is when you implement change, and I normally use some elements of Kotter's change model, no? Whenever organizations come to me and they want an organizational initiative or intervention, I follow some aspects of not all because I combine some frameworks. You're not it's okay to combine some frameworks, no? In the past, I just used the gap analysis. Where is it we want to go? Where are we today? What will we do? But here medyo expanded na siya. So in the story, you will see that they will tell you to create a sense of urgency, then build a guiding coalition. And part of the guiding coalition is the sponsorship of the management because or the top leaders, because if the sponsorship is not there, it's not going to be effective. Then you form a strategic vision where you want to go, which is in the gap analysis, where is it we want to go, of course. Then enlist a volunteer army so that they push your initiatives, enable actions by removing barriers, especially if there are people who will talk around and discourage other people, then it will be a barrier to the change you want to implement. Generate short wins to drive the change and sustain acceleration, uh, and then institute change. As you can see, in OD, kaya matagal siya, you have to embed the change. It has to, we use the term institutionalize. You have to institutionalize the change. Okay. Quick lang. Some people have said they've read the book 5 years. Okay, okay lang naman if you read the book a long time ago. I've moved my cheese is about change. It's different. It's about mice, but it still talks about agility and change, and it's okay. And here, Leng Fajardo told the story, yeah, of Fred. Fred is the one who discovers the need for change, but he engaged the other penguins so that they can move. Don't worry, it's a happy story. In the end, they were able. So spoiler, they were able to manage the change and pero maganda basahin nyo and institutionalize the change. It's really a good story. It's a management book, but it uses the penguin. So I'll not go through the smaller slides here because it just tells you what to do. But I'll share with AAI whoever wants to do this. You can have this. So these are the steps. We'll not go through them because I want us to go through the exercise later. So it will just show you what you do per step. No? So there are 8 steps. And then there, institute change. So that long term, it doesn't stay there. Okay, but the insight here is that when you apply this is a roadmap for transformational change, and you adapt the change in the organizational context involving every system in the organization, not just one function. And then you combine this with continuous communication and stakeholder engagement, because that's what happened in this story. They had to engage everybody in the change that they were going through. Okay. The next thing is so this is a systematic approach to change, and when followed, it will help inspire leaders. It will help leaders inspire action, overcome resistance, and embed lasting transformation. So read the book; it's very good. But if you follow the 8 steps, it's basically means you'll be able to implement change with no issue, because the focus of Cutter's 8 step is really engaging everybody in the organization. They are part of it. Now, the other model you might be familiar is Kubler-Ross change model. It's actually also known as the grief cycle because Kubler-Ross is actually a psychologist and he studied people who have terminal illnesses and what do they go through. Kaya siya grief model, no? Um, so he looked at the emotional responses to terminal illness and then applied what she learned there to the change management model, to her change management model. And the stages are, and when I teach this actually in college in my HR class. I give an acronym. So DABDA: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. According to the model, anyone facing change, and we're not no longer talking about about terminal illness, but any change. So for example, like what's happening to us, right? Change in the prices of gasoline. When it happened, what was your initial reaction? Sige nga, to engage the participants. How did you react when you learned? Oh, at hindi lang ano ha, at hindi lang 1 peso, 2 pesos, it's 10 pesos. May I know what was your initial reaction when you learned it? Bawal lang ang ano, curse words. But can you type? What was your reaction when you high price of commodity? You blamed Trump, okay? Yeah, true, kasi he initiated. No? You thought it was fake news, so that's a bit of denial. So you'd see, it was a bit of denial. Denial na kaya pa, okay? Oo naman. What else? So aside from that, anyone else? What was your reaction? It was difficult, yeah. Depressed. Oh yeah, you were depressed. Medyo nag-move ka na, no? Okay, anyone else? So as you can see, no, initially, it was a change in the prices. Even that, we saw that we went through some of the stages. So there's denial, there's anger, right? Meron pang depression eh. Ano ba yung reaction ko nung tumaas? A bit of fear, no? A bit of fear that when will this stop, right? So it's a change in what's happening to our prices. Thought it wouldn't last, you were worried, anxious, yeah, which are also aspects of denial or anger. So thank you for those who responded. And we really go through that. So, sinasabi ng model is when you introduce a change, it happens. People will go through this. The important thing is, why did she plot this? So you know what interventions to support people going through change. Which we should tell BBM these are where people are so that he can actually implement interventions. So this is it's a curve. It shows a curve because it also shows the height of emotions. Because that's what I like about Kubler-Ross. I like the emotions, that they focus on emotions when you implement change. So in this case, denial, you are in disbelief, you look for evidences, you search the Google or ChatGPT, what's happening. Then, of course, anger. So, kanina, blaming Trump. That's part of anger already. So, medyo nag-jump ka na. Although, I assume, kasi sinasabi rin, in the model, it says that you go through all the stages, but it's not the same time. So, sometimes denial can be short, as in one thought lang, then you go to anger. But what Kubler-Ross is saying, everybody will go through the stages of change. So anger, blaming someone, then bargaining. You think, if I do this, this is what you bargain na, uh, engage the change and what will I do to be able to accept it. Pero hindi mo pa ina-accept. And then depression, this is where it impacts you na talagang, this is heavy. Like when I saw, we have a diesel car, no? When I saw the amount, it's times two. Talagang nakakaiyak, no? Medyo nakaka-depress din. Until you tend to, until you move, if you manage each stage and you don't stay there, the important thing is you know that you're in a particular stage and manage it so that you can go to accept. Because change, sabi nga, change is here to stay, no? But what do you do, no? So what do you do in order to be able to accept that change? And that is what this model is is telling us. Be aware of where people are, And I like this model because as an and I'll tell you later in the example that when I actually did a M&A, merger. I was part of the team that did merger and acquisition in another company. We looked at the Kubler-Ross change model. I think we were successful in doing that in the merger that we implemented. So again, I'll just share this. These are the things that people go through. So denial, anger, andyan na yung blaming, bargaining, suggesting compromises, depression, and of course, acceptance. This is where you want people to go, that they accept the change, especially if it's a change. In that case, it's a change of management because the experience was we were the bigger company and we were getting a smaller company. So I was in an insurance company then. So we were a life insurance. We got the non-life so that we can provide one experience for our customers. No longer just life, but even non-life. We provide the whole spectrum of insurances that people needed. Not many companies were doing that at that time. So it was a bit of a shock to the smaller company that was going through it. So we had to apply this framework to help them, to help us become one company. Um, so as mentioned here, it is a curve and shows the emotional intensity as acceptance increases. Okay. Important thing about this, as I mentioned, because when you implement change, it's the people who actually experience it. So it's very important that you understand where they are so you can provide the right intervention, plan communication and support for each stage, use empathy and active listening to guide teams through each stage of the change, and then reinforce positive aspects and quick wins to build momentum. So let me share with you, the conclusion is that we can apply it to anticipate emotional responses to change, and by applying targeted strategies at each stage, managers can ease transitions, reducing resistance and foster acceptance. So now I go to my story, no? There's an update pala, sorry. So hindi na siya dabda, inexpand na ni Kubler-Ross. So mas marami ng aspects, hindi lang anger. So hindi na negative yung anger. It could be shock because people could be shocked, right? And frustration is there. He just expanded it. No longer just acceptance, but the decision to work with the change. And then the integration is there. No longer bargaining, but experimentation. So she just changed the name. She pala siya. She just changed the name to make it more updated. But I want to proceed now um, to the process first pala before the story. So when you do OD, there's a process. And Marivic Flores is a Filipina. And let me move to the process. So typically, OD consultants are OD practitioners. Some of them are consultants. Or sometimes if you're internal, you have to enter in a contract that the management will sponsor you. This is just a quick um, parang laying down groundwork that we're going to do an OD intervention. But the most important aspect is diagnosis. Diagnosis is the most important aspect. Like training, di ba? You have the training needs analysis. Here you diagnose what is really wrong with what is, parang doctor, what sickness does the organization have? So you have to diagnose what the organization is going through, so that you can implement. Is it a change initiative? Is it a culture initiative that they need to have? Is it yun nga, in the merger and acquisition? What exactly are people going through? And I'll tell the story later on about that. And that's the only time you implement the change. You plan and implement the change. Because if you don't diagnose well, if you go ahead, you might not hit, parang symptom lang. Again, the difference is in OD, you look at the systems, what's wrong, the root cause, rather than the symptom. Because the danger in OD, if you just address the symptom, then what's going to happen is that you will not really implement a lasting change. Again, remember the title is it should be impactful. So that's so you have to diagnose well so that you can implement the right intervention. Then evaluating and institutionalizing, because it is important that you embed the change so that it is sustained. If you have read the the story of the penguins, the iceberg is melting. So one of the things that they did there is they've lived in that iceberg that was about to melt for hundreds of years, so that the change is really difficult. But what happened, because they experienced this whole uh change experience where they looked for an iceberg, and then they transferred thousands of penguins there. How did they do that? It's in the book. In the end, they realized that change is constant. It's always there. So what happened was they kept searching for icebergs na. Sige, I'll go to the spoiler. They institutionalized the finding of iceberg. So now the penguin colony did not have a hard time adjusting or adapting to change, because it is already part of their culture. Now the next few slides would but there will be slides that will explain of all of this that I will share with you. But the next slide will be, how did I use these frameworks in my OD practice when I practice OD? So let me tell you. So I've done a lot of OD work, but maybe one of the recent, when I was still in corporate, I left corporate in 2017. But I think this was 2015 or 2016, I mentioned we were part of this big global organization. There was this local organization that we were folding into our company because we offered life insurance, and this smaller company offered non-life. So we wanted to give the customer the whole experience end to end, hindi not just life, but even their houses, their cars, and other properties and all that non-life that we wanted to provide. So the task was, us in HR, um, how do we now help the people, the organization, um, merge together and become one? So what we did is that we made various task force. So the sense of urgency, by the way, was because it was a management direction. They wanted to provide one whole, or the customer also, one whole experience in buying insurance. So we created various task forces to look into the integration of the systems, integration of the products. So marketing had its own integrated task force, IT also. But it they were having difficulties because people didn't know each other, right? So what we did in HR is that we did several initiatives while we were marrying the uh, payroll, the benefits, and all that, because they're very different. We're from a global company, where they are from a local company. What we also did is we created um, because our offices were near each other. I forgot what it's exactly called, but it's like office visitation. What was office visitation? For the teams to really work together, what we did is we had various teams visit the other team in the other building. So, and we did it one time in our office and another time in their office. So for an example, in HR, the HR team of the smaller group, we had them visit the office of the bigger group, because we want them to have a feel of the team, because the teams were going to be merged. Wala namang mawawalang team. They're going to be merged. So they need to, instead of having a team building all across the organization, we had them go and have that office visitation. Parang it's also a time to get to know one another, what they are doing. So that's one thing we did. And then one of the things I noticed is that the group in the smaller group, they were afraid of losing a lot of traditions. No, for a time I was actually assigned to handle the HR there. I became the HR head for a time because nag-resign yung HR head nila. So they were able to tell me, Karen, these are our fears. Do you know, in every this time we have this awards and recognition. In my bigger company, we didn't have that as regular as there. So I listened to those. We listened to those things and there. So we had an FGD also, so just to know where they are. And we are addressing the denial and anger or the shock that people had, no. So what we did is, even if we don't it in the bigger group, we had them say goodbye to that tradition. So that particular year when we weren't yet, so we had the office visitations na, no, people would be visiting, but we also had that uh holding that tradition once again for them to experience, but also allowing them to say goodbye. Because now, since we're moving to the bigger group, we're of course going to practice the global practices that we had. The other thing is we also had that parang battle cry. So one blank, one company, let's just call it, I don't want to mention the company, but one company. So for example, company ABC, we had the tagline, one company ABC. So that we are coming out of it as one different organization from what we both were. Of course, as the bigger organization, we weren't as afraid as them, because of course they should adjust to what we were practicing already, because we of course have the global practices in place already. But of course, we didn't let them feel that. We became inclusive. We listened to what they wanted, and eventually, when I was there, all the teams, or maybe I could speak for the HR team, we were able to merge together effectively. In other words, we did not tell them, because we retained the bigger name, of course, because it was the global brand, but we did not rub it in their faces that we're the better team. We were very conscious of making them feel we're a different team now. We're one. Even if we're the bigger team, we're retaining our name. You're now part of a different team, the merge of the local brand and the global brand. And I think in the end, uh, it went well naman. So it was successful. We were able to merge all the teams. They were able to work together. And of course, that company was able to offer the objective. Again, what was the objective? To be able to provide one one experience that the companies don't and customers don't need to go to different companies to give different insurances, but they can get the whole menu of insurances from one company. So that's just an example of how we used OD. This was in a merger and acquisition situation. And we really introduced a lot of, so it was a bit difficult because I think we had to spend 6 months just making the people from the smaller company feel comfortable. But it helped that we have this behavioral theories to draw from. Of course, we protected employee engagement as much as possible. We did not want people to resign from the smaller group because they had the competencies needed that we didn't have. We had competencies in life, but the competencies in non-life is different. I tell you, it's different. Even if we're offering insurance, it's still different. So we didn't want to lose that competency that they had. So that's how we implemented to create a lasting change. Okay. Now you try it. So I'll give you I'll give you now in the chat um your OD consultants, and the scenario is that company ABC is experiencing low employee morale, low employee engagement score, sorry, missed deadlines. I cannot read kasi let me just, yeah. Missed deadlines impacting the targets negatively, increasing customer complaints, and high employee turnover. What do you think is wrong in this scenario in company ABC? So you can type or you can open your mic if you want to speak. If you don't want to type, what is wrong? Okay? Overwork, okay? Who are overworked? The employees, William? Is my audio okay? Meron daw akong echo. Nawala na. Okay, I hope it's okay. Okay, maybe the targets are not explained well. Okay. Thank you, William, for answering. Lack of clear direction and engagement. Okay, just type what you think. Burnout, kasi nga sa overwork. Poor leadership and process are not aligned. Will issues, yung gusto nilang mag-work na, very good, not motivated. They are possibly undergoing change and the direction is not clear. Employees might be confused and have fears. Not clear KPIs and goals. Okay, just keep it coming. Poor communication. Okay, ang ganda ng sinabi ni Jeannie and I will read it. Hard to tell because it seems like these are symptoms and not root causes. Very good. They could be burnt out and could be due to lack of manpower or processes or clarity. Missed deadlines. No leadership. Okay, so just keep on typing, but it seems it's a mix of people issues and then of you mentioned about processes, KPIs, the communication. At this point, we don't know, no? But the last thing we want to do as OD consultants is we blame the individuals. Na ang sagot agad natin, overwork or buti walang sumasagot dito. Lazy people, right? But the better question to ask is, and of course, it's a trick activity. As an OD consultant, your first question is, what is happening in the systems in the organization? I like the other answers you said, baka may communication issue, baka the direction is not clear, because that's the thing that you're going to look at as an OD consultant. You look at the structure. Maayos ba yung structure nila? Baka isang tao, 10 ang boses, di ba? Medyo exag, right? Or is it the culture? The culture is not driving the strategy of the business or even the processes. Like Gwyn said, process guidelines may be missing, poor management, and lack of analysis of the concerns. So, why is this a trick question? Because the first thing you do is diagnose what is happening. And you can do that from, you don't even need to do an intervention na magsisurvey ka eh. Sometimes, the organization already has a climate survey or employee engagement survey. You can look at the documentation to check on engagement to be able to find out and diagnose what's happening in the organization. So the first step, and that is the trick question, is that you have to diagnose first to be able to know what exactly is wrong. And it's not the people most of the time. It could be, you're right, it could be the processes, so sabi ni William, procedures, the change is impacting morale, could be the communication is not clear, no? Sabi nila magre-redundate ng people. Bakit ngayon may redundancy, 'di ba? So many things can be, and the thing to help you is the diagnosis. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed that, becoming OD consultants. Now, just to finish this off or to summarize, OD is systemic. You look at the systems, not symptomatic. Like what one person said a while ago, look at the root cause of where the sickness is. Kung halimbawa, inuubo yung organization, and then you cure the ubo, yung pala may pneumonia, then you have, of course, you have to cure the pneumonia because it's still going to continue, right? Ganun this organization. You have to cure the root cause. Focus is on structures, culture, and processes, not people. I mean, when we say people, people are not usually the problem. It could be something that's happening in the structure, culture, and processes. And to provide sustainable change, it should be designed, so meaning purposive, and it should be based on data. Okay? So with that, I will now open the floor for any other, sorry. So one of the things again, I will reiterate, one of the only things in life that never change is change. And therefore, as now we've heard about OD as a change initiative, we focus on change. I hope it will encourage you to practice OD when changes happen in your organization. Now, I open the floor for any questions you might have.
Hi, Karen. Thank
Hi,
you.
Carol.
There are questions that came in, so these were sent to us directly. So let me just read some of them. Okay, so what are the common tools used in conducting OD?
So
Are
as
there
I
specific tools?
So as I mentioned, it's really the change frameworks that you can use. There are many, no? So hindi lang what I shared. There's even the ADCAR, there's even Lumin nga. So various change models that so basically you can actually for example Lencioni as well, the five dysfunctions. So bottom line, use a research-based material. So don't do OD without using tools that are research because
Mm.
you don't want to do the work yourself. So I normally use Kubler-Ross,
Mm.
change model frameworks, bale. You use them to be
Okay.
able to um, practice OD. And as I
Mm.
mentioned, you can use the data that you already have because you have to base it on evidence. So you can
Mm.
use employee engagement surveys, results, pulse surveys, or even FGD. I mentioned like in that company, I use an FGD to be able to find out what people are feeling. So various marami. Too many
Mm.
to mention, but one siguro the bottom line is use a tried and tested framework to
Mm.
help you.
Okay. All right. Um, how long does an OD intervention last, considering that it is systemic?
It's quite long. So it's as I mentioned, it's yung LND. Later you can get the reaction, right? The level 1 evaluation. You can know if you did well or not. In OD, it typically takes around as short as depending on the extent and
Mm-mm.
extensiveness. It typically takes shortest around mahaba 6 to 1 year. Pero
Mm.
typically
Okay.
it's a 3 year period. Dahil na culture,
Mm-mm.
culture
Mm-mm.
takes 3 years. So for you have to be very patient as an OD practitioner
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
because hindi agad marireap yung changes.
Yeah.
Hindi agad. Typically
Oo.
2 years yan.
Yes, tsaka depende rin yan kasi, di ba? When you diagnose, there are some issues that may be resolved or addressed
Manganganak.
quickly. Pero meron dadating na bago, di ba? Kaya you really cannot say exactly how long it will last. There's another question. Kaya lang baka hindi natin mabasa lahat ng questions. For those questions that we may not be able to read, we will answer them. We will send you an email we will let Karen respond to it. But let me just read the next one. With the global crisis, a lot of organizations has resorted to reduction in forces. With the Kubler-Ross change curve, what do we need to watch out in avoiding toxic positivity, especially if we reinforce positive aspects and quick wins to the teams, especially to the remaining team members impacted by the reduction in workforce?
Okay. Ang haba ng tanong. But
Oo
I
nga
guess
eh.
number one, you
Oo.
have to agree, you have to look at the emotions of the people.
Mm-mm.
Where are they in the dabda? And then you said, I think what I got is people might be showing positive pero in other pero sa loob-loob nila
Mm-mm.
masama loob nila, no.
Mm-mm.
So you just have to encourage transparency so you know
Mm-mm.
what interventions to apply when it comes to that change. But really, I've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Talagang it's part of it. Recognize the emotion and then
Mm-mm.
find out what you can do, especially
Oh,
those who will be staying,
mm-mm.
what you can do to engage them. Kasi syempre, ang una nilang reaction, ay, ang dami kong work, sa akin nabigay yung work ng iba. So what do you do to
Mm-mm.
address that? So,
Mm-mm.
but you're doing the first right step, acknowledging and being aware that these emotions do exist.
Mm-mm. Okay, all right. There are some more questions. Okay,
Okay.
let me.
But if I synthesize, mukhang curious
Oo.
sila to start their journey in OD.
Oo
So
nga
I
eh.
will promote, hindi kami partner with Ateneo, but of course,
Mm-mm.
CORD, the Center for Organizational, ano yung
Yes, research
CR,
and development.
Research and
Yes.
Development, has
Oo.
certificate in OD. So that's one. Hindi ko alam
Mm-mm.
dati 25,000 pesos
Oo.
lang yan. Iba na yata
Mm-mm.
ngayon.
But you
Don't
can.
quote me, but when I went to it, You can check their website. We're not affiliated with them, so wala
Mm.
akong commission dito.
Oo.
SAIDI also, I forgot the how it is. You can just
Mm-mm.
SAIDI is also, they give degrees naman on our OD. So
Mm-mm.
SAIDI is also one. I'm also not affiliated with them. I just have friends who have degrees from there. So that's where
Ah,
you can start your, if you want it to be theoretical, you can start your
mm-mm.
OD. Of course, abroad,
Mm-mm.
there's a lot of universities abroad. Wala kasi sa Pilipinas eh. Wala
Mm-mm.
tayong OD
Mm-mm.
course. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, tapos si Flor Castillo also asked kasi if a department, ano nga yung question niya? It's here. Hmm.
Where should it belong?
Mm-mm.
Well, in
Mm-mm.
our case, when we were a division, as I mentioned, we were directly under the president because we were highlighting OD as an important initiative or the organization. But most companies now, they lodge OD under HR.
Mm-mm.
Most companies under HR. Iba lang kami nun. So,
Yeah.
dalawa ang para HR groups nun.
Mm-mm.
We had OD division and the HRM
Yeah.
division. We just
Mm-mm.
emphasized OD at that time.
Or sometimes even OD and training are separate. Diba?
Yeah.
It's under the Human Resources Department, pero magkakaiba kasi, iba din talaga yung function ni OD, iba din yung function ni training, di ba? So, parang wala naman talagang rule on where it
Oo.
should
Wala
be
namang,
under
basically what your organization needs. Right.
yes.
PMAP
Tapos,
daw or offers OD, sabi ni Ruby. Thank you, friend.
yes.
Thank you, friend.
And tapos, specialized degree. So you already answered that. Given that OD has a longer timeline, what are the quick wins that can be communicated to inspire the organization to continue with the initiative? That's a question from Doris.
Okay, what are the quick wins? I
Mm-mm.
think you have to keep them updated of
Mm-mm.
where we are. Like for example, in our case, if there's a positive thing, for example, okay, we're gonna still practice kasi ang initial chismis were the story that I had a while ago. Ang chismis will not or ibabasura na yung tradisyon ng organization. So we have to
Uh-uh.
crush that. We say, okay, we're gonna have this awarding ceremony, and it's exclusively with your company, so that you can say goodbye to that tradition, and that
Mm-mm.
all those who are expecting that tradition, it will push
Mm-mm.
you. So if there are positive things, we immediately communicate it. But
Okay.
if it's a bit negative, we will talk to a few people, see how they accept it, but we will still tell them. But kumbaga, we've already packaged it in a way na na-test na namin siya to the few people.
Yeah. Tapos last question, question na to. Is it okay to change your framework in the middle of the OD process?
Yes, ang
Yeah.
nakakaalam lang ng framework ay kayo. So,
Yeah.
'di ba?
Yeah.
Hindi naman nila
Yeah.
alam 'yun eh. Of course
Uh-huh.
you can. You can even create your own as long as it is
Mm-mm.
working for your organization. And when I was going through my IR course in
Mm-mm.
industrial relations, actually
Mm-mm.
pinagawa kami ng framework sarili namin.
Mm-mm.
So, yung 'di ba may McKinsey,
Uh-uh.
7Ss, ganyan. Gumawa kami ng sarili namin because our teacher wanted us to be able to also do our own. So,
Mm-mm.
definitely you can.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Karen. So, kung may makita pa kaming na-miss namin basahin, we'll send that to you so that you can respond. So, before we formally end, we will have a quick picture taking ba? Yeah, we'll
Tapos
have a quick lang picture
ulit.
taking. And then, pero siguro, I can already say thank you to everyone that participated. Thank you once again, especially those na mga suki namin na nag-attend every time we offer this. We truly appreciate the time you have invested and the insights that you've shared with us in sessions like this. Hindi lang kami ang nag-i-impart ng knowledge. We also learn from your questions. We also learn from whatever you share with us. And as we celebrate 20 years of partnership with our clients, you, our clients, sessions like this, that's our way of giving back to you. And that's also our way to support your continuous growth and development. So we're pleased to share that more webinars and learning opportunities are lined up next month. On April 30, we have another very interesting webinar on about surprise yata, surprise. Si Ray will send it to us, but it's about leadership. So, watch out for that and then make sure that you join us. That's another interesting topic. So in the coming months, there are more webinars lined up. And we hope that you will be with us again. So thank you for your continued trust, and we look forward to learning together in the sessions ahead. Okay, so picture taking daw muna, sabi ni Ray. So please turn on your camera para makita kayo sa picture. Okay.
Thank
Ah,
you.
So
Thank you
we'll
very
launch a
much.
survey poll. We also want to know what other topics you're interested to learn. So please answer the poll. Help us also do it better every time. So there. Okay. So thank you again. OD part 2, please. Yes. Nagustuhan nila yung topic mo kasi. Karen.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you po for the learnings for today.
Thank you too. You're welcome, and thank you also for attending.